Yeah, we do well for time. Now we go on to the next item, which is item 8, Dyson Drive. Chris?
That's me, Chairman, thank you. I'll just let him go out. Yep. Before we start the presentation, I would just like to draw members' attention to the committee addendum and the proposed inclusion of an additional reason for refusal on the grounds of the lack of B&G information. So the application is, in terms of the framework, should be subject to a B&G supporting information which hasn't been provided. Therefore, through the addendum, we are seeking to add an additional reason for refusal.
Can you just explain what the B&G is? It's because it's lovely terminology.
Sorry, Chairman. B&G relates to biodiversity net gain. Within the NPPF, there is now a requirement for small and major sites to deliver a on-site 10% net gain. As such, in support of the application, unless it meets one of the exemptions which hasn't been identified robustly within the application form or the supporting information, the applicant would be required to submit a statutory metric which provided a baseline assessment for the existing value of the site, and then information to demonstrate that 10% net gain can be provided. In this case, that information has not been provided. Thank you.
Thank you. So you want to go away with the
Yep,
presentation?
I'll start the presentation, yep. The application proposes the creation of 9 off-street parking spaces and planting of three new trees. The application has been submitted on behalf of the residents of the dwellings on Dyson Drive. The application site refers to Dyson Drive, which is an unadopted road located within the St Andrews Park Phase 3B. The site lies within the developed area. There are no other policy designations. And you can see that on this constraints plan here. The site comprises of 15 parking spaces for use by residents on Dyson Drive. The existing parking provision consists of 9 allocated parking spaces for the use by applicants and 6 unallocated parking spaces. This is the proposed location and site plan. The proposal seeks to increase the parking provision available to house owners on Dyson Drive, resulting in 2 parking spaces per dwelling. The application has come before committee this evening due to the submission of a petition with 54 signatures in support of the proposal. The application has also been generated 12 letters of support and 12 letters of objection. The application is a resubmission to a similar application that was refused by Planning Committee approximately a year ago. The previous application proposed 8 additional parking spaces, whereas this application proposes 9. And those parking spaces were along the road, whereas the current application would add, as I said, an additional 1 within the same space alongside the existing parking bays. The current, let me just move, this is the bird's eye plan, so you'll see parking spaces underneath these tree canopies here and there. Some photographs. Dyson Drive here. This is from the opposite end of Dyson Drive. And the last photo there. The current scheme also proposes 3 trees and the use of the grasscrete surfacing on the new parking spaces. The provision of new trees is welcomed, however the grasscrete is not, and is not considered to be an appropriate solution to offset the loss of the green space. To the north of the site is a landscaped pedestrian link. The proposal is considered to detract from the visual quality and the usability of this important part of the estate. In accordance with the St Andrews Park development application, the application site forms part of Phase 3B, which was granted permission for 56 units, 70 car parking spaces. This results in a parking ratio of 1.25 spaces per unit. Adding 9 additional spaces would increase this ratio to 1.41 per unit. In accordance with the London Plan, which sets out maximum car parking standards, and I would emphasise that they are maximum, the allowance within that policy would be 46.5 spaces for the 56 units, equating to a ratio of around 0.83. As such, the increase from 70 to 79 spaces would be far in excess of the maximum parking standards set out within the London Plan. Members should note that the London Plan sets the maximum car parking standards in order to accord with National Planning Policy's framework's objectives for sustainable development. Whilst this is not the sole mechanism for achieving this, the reduction in car parking is viewed as essential to reducing the demand for car use. This development is therefore not only contrary to the London Plan, but also the objectives of sustainable development within the development plan as a whole. Furthermore, increasing parking availability would not necessarily address a parking demand issue. In fact, it may well encourage further parking demand as well as promoting the use of the car rather than more sustainable methods of transport. Due to the lack of parking controls on Dyson Drive, the proposal would increase parking congestion, thereby making the existing situation worse. The application has been reviewed by the local highway authority, have raised strong objections to the proposal. No justification has been put before officers, nor benefits which would be considered to outweigh such a stark policy departure. As such, the application fails to respond positively to the reasons for refusal which were attached to the previous application, and it remains unacceptable in policy terms. In addition, in accordance with the NPPF, the proposal would meet the requirements for the requirement of the on-site 10% biodiversity net gain provision. This application is not supported by a statutory metric nor a BNG assessment, and this forms a second reason for refusal. For the reasons detailed in the committee report and the addendum, officers recommend the application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chris. Steve Haywood, would you like to come on down? That's fine. No, hang on a minute. I'm just doing this. Mr. Hayward, so Richard, are you the agent then as well? So, what, are you planning to speak together, or what? You're going to share the time. Okay, because obviously you would have 5 minutes each. So, you want 10 minutes? Oh, right, yeah, fine. Yeah. But what would normally No, it's fine. It's just unusual usually for the petitioner and the agent to be talking together, but that's fine. We'll give you the 10, if that's okay with you, so then it's all done in one go. Okay, so whenever you speak, just press the microphone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairman and members. This application is a resubmission from a previous application you've seen before. The previous application was refused because of highway safety grounds, because what we were seeking to do was to marcate car parking spaces along the existing private road that you can see on the photograph above. Currently, what the current residents experience is that there's actually informal car parking along there anyway. So our original plan was to kind of regularize that, to make it safe and usable for the existing residents. However, probably rightfully so, the members felt that there was a highway safety issue, so we took that refusal away. We listened to the council officers, we listened to some members as well. I just want to add actually that this application was submitted on behalf of all of the residents of the street, so Dyson Drive. That's 9 separate houses, so there's a lot of public support for it, and most of them are here tonight as well. So when we were formulating the new proposal, obviously highway safety was really important for us, so it led to us rearranging the parking and actually providing 9 off-street parking spaces instead. So currently those 9 houses have 1 parking space each, isn't that right? Yeah. So what we'd be proposing is making that 2 allocated spaces per unit, which is in line with your local parking standards. However, they're not in line with the regional London plan standards. So that's where the sort of rub is, to speak. Yeah, so that's more or less the parking point, but I would just add as well, the Killet Drive, which is on the other side of the Green Boulevard from Dyson Drive, if you compare that street to this street, it's very useful for comparison purposes, because what you'll find is there's a lot more car parking spaces on that street.
21 versus 16.
Yeah. And there's also actually a turning head as well, so it's a lot more intense in terms of hard landscaping as well, much less greenery. I've heard tonight the point on, the PNG. That's a bit unfortunate. I do recognise that it probably is required because it's over a certain square meterage. It wasn't submitted with the application because at the time we submitted it, we were resubmitting, obviously, following a previous refusal. What I would say on it, though, is that it's very clear if you look at biodiversity, communal grass, which is what's there at the moment, is the lowest biodiversity value there is. So it has very little biodiversity value. And then if you look at the size of our red line site, so Chris, if you wouldn't mind showing the red line site, yeah. It's just the point I'm looking to make is that the other one, that one, yeah. So it's quite large actually. So that gives us a lot of opportunity to provide that 10% net gain that the officer's just been speaking about. So as that's the case, I can comfortably say that we will hit a 10% net gain, but it's how therefore are you able to achieve those details? And I would recommend a condition in this case. Worst case scenario, if you didn't feel comfortable here today, I would ask for a deferral anyway to provide B&G assessment, but obviously that's up to you. Coming back to the parking, like I said, it's in line with local parking standards. It's making the road safe. It's currently not safe. Yeah, so I'll hand it over to you. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
Just hand over. Okay. Good evening, members of the Planning Committee and fellow residents. My name is Stephen Hayward, and I am one of the applicants for the proposed development of 9 additional off-street parking spaces along Dyson Drive. The other applicants are behind me, and we've all been badly affected by the lack of dedicated parking on Dyson Drive. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today about a project that I believe will benefit not only my household, but also our community. Many of us, most of us, have young families, so having safe and ready access to our cars is a must. I listened to the refusal points from our last planning application, the main one being health and safety regarding the width of the road being impacted by parking along the length of the road, narrowing the road. Therefore, we have moved the bays to be alongside the existing bays that are perpendicular to the road, away from creating bays along the road. This improves the flow of traffic along the road. We have the full support of the developer behind this application, and they have given the go-ahead to obtain the permission so that the works can be carried out. This proposal also aligns with local planning policies that prioritise reducing on-street parking demands and encouraging sustainable land use. The design of the parking area has been carefully considered to ensure it blends seamlessly with the existing environment. Features such as using grasscrete landscaping and the planting of new trees will minimise visual impacts and maintain the character of the area. I want to address the one concern the planning department had with the application and the reason for refusal head on. These spaces will not increase the amount of parking or volume of movement or numbers of cars. These cars are already being parked in the road with informal on-street parking, so it's a bit of a false statement to suggest this will create extra problems and car journeys. The provision of these spaces will create a much better environment for us, the residents, and I believe we will all be safer, including our children, due to the improved health and safety aspect of having allocated parking. Moreover, from the last time we had a meeting, Councillor Higgins made the suggestion to create the spaces in this way that we have in this application, and he on a personal level felt that this should be something that he would find acceptable. This viewpoint was largely agreed upon by the other councillors. In closing, I urge the committee to view this application as a proactive step towards a more balanced and functional local infrastructure. By approving these parking spaces, you will be supporting a solution that respects community needs and creates a safer environment for a group of happy council taxpayers. Thank you for your time and consideration. I now hand you over to my neighbour Ved, who is going to say a few words regards the application and the problems and issues that it resolves.
Can I just come back in, actually, because I forgot to mention that the proposal includes the planting of 3 trees as well. So obviously there is that biodiversity net gain. So there would have been already a condition probably in place to secure those trees. So as part of that condition, further details and landscaping details could be secured to address the B&G point. More than happy with that.
Thank you very much, the committee. I won't waste any time. I just want to mention that because of this issue, everyone have kids which is under 5, and we had to do so many police complaints because they are parking the big vans and the car anywhere they want. And when we go to the person and said we are going to do the police complaint, they said, yeah, you go and do the police complaint. Wherever we find the empty parking, either it's your bay or it's not, we are going to park on your bay. And because of that issues, we all have little kids. So many times it happened to me myself because my wife was pregnant and she couldn't go to the hospital because someone blocked the car, and I had to do the police complaint. And it's keep going on. It's literally happened 6 months ago as well. So we have all the videos, all the photographs and everything for the evidence. That's it from me. Thank you.
Go ahead, Richard, you got a couple of minutes, you all finished? Oh, you got less than a minute.
I'll just mention maybe that these are all family-sized dwellings as well. They're not small dwellings. And I am repeating myself, but 2 parking spaces. We saw applications earlier here tonight where parking was an issue, and this is exactly what we usually expect in Hillingdon. So I would like to think councillors might look favourably upon that aspect of it. I am concerned about the B&G, but I'm not concerned because I know we can deliver it. It's just how you want to package that up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does councillors have any questions for the petitioner or the agent? No, I will call you in a minute, councillor. Go on. Right.
Thank you, Chair. So you are aware it's against policy, London policy. In terms of to go against officers' recommendation, I mean, maybe I missed some of the points, but what's the main point? How you feel we can overcome that?
Yes, I think you need to recognise the existing situation, as the resident mentioned, which was there is currently highway safety issues. There's a number of aspects to that. One of them is actually refuse access to the road itself. It's quite difficult at the moment because you have informal on-street car parking. So you have refuse trucks that travel up Dyson Drive, then turn around and then back, but often they can't actually access the properties at the end of the street because it's too narrow, and obviously the cars where they're parked, it makes the distance between the houses and those parked cars very, very narrow for the refuse vehicles and for pedestrians as well. So that's one kind of current failure of the current arrangements. So by allowing this scheme, what you're doing is obviously taking those spaces away which are causing the current highway safety issues and moving them to a place that are safe for residents to use. There's also the kind of antisocial behaviour aspect as well, because they're informal. You do get, I appreciate that, but it is an ongoing concern for residents as well.
Thank you, Chair. Also, the current informal parking arrangements that you have here, say, for example, we were minded to go against the officer's recommendation. Now, the current parking that you have, not on the bays, but in the street, we saw a photograph of that, the cars parked around. Now, if these bays were then installed, where would those cars go then? Or would you encourage more cars to come in? How would that be, not policed, but managed? And I'm thinking on the lines of getting double yellows installed, something on those lines, so that, what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think on the previous application we were looking at adopting something similar to what you see on the other road next door, because there is actually measures in place on it. But because all the residents here at the moment rely on that informal car parking, you know, just like you do when you're bringing in a CPZ, you need the residents' support for it. And unfortunately, there's no support for measures at the moment because you need the car parking. So it's a bit of a, you know, bit of an issue really that needs to be resolved.
Other questions? I'll ask one question. Are the spaces at the moment allocated to each house or not?
No. So you do get, like visitors to the town centre and things like that, parking there and just parking the car all day.
Okay, so it's another thing to be mindful of. Any other questions? No? Thank you. You may take your seat. Can I call the ward councillor? Councillor Chandel?
Lovely. Thank you, Chair and committee members. As ward councillor, I'm here to represent the residents of Dyson Drive in support of their petition. Since last year, the residents have positively engaged with St Modwyn's, the private developers, and it is clear that there was an oversight with the previous developers in not allocating sufficient parking spaces in line with the rest of St Andrew's Park. St Modwyn's are aware of this application and are fully supportive of it. Since the initial development and planning granted in 2016, the reality is that most households have at least 2 cars. For families with young children and regular errands to manage, alternative and more sustainable transport options are not always practical. The residents are mindful of the environmental factors and the impact to green spaces, and therefore, as has been said, are proposing to fund the planning of 3 additional trees and a grass scree if possible at an estimated cost of £1,500 to themselves. We're not asking for a major change to the streetscape, just to bring Dyson Drive in line with Kellett Street, which is directly opposite and has 2 allocated spaces per house and is consistent with the rest of St Andrew's Park. In short, this request for additional parking is not an expansion but a formalisation of the current situation. Cars are already parked alongside the road and across existing bays, which affects road safety and access. By creating the proper parking spaces, we can address this issue and improve road safety without increasing overall parking pressure. I urge the committee to give serious consideration to this request and what has been presented today. If a site visit would help clarify the situation, I encourage you to visit Dyson Drive and see the current parking challenges for yourselves, due to the lack of what should have been allocated initially in line with the rest of St Andrew's Park. And I stress again, we are just looking to formalise the current parking situation into designated spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have a question for the councillor? No? Thank you very much. You may take your seat. Okay, so I'll open to the floor. Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a strange one, because when those houses were built, I believe it's 1 parking space allocated and it would have all been thought of. Now, moving along a few years now, the case being made from both the ward councillor and the residents, I think it's a sensible request. Because, sorry, could we go back to the parking spaces that were the proposed ones? So you still see a fair amount of greenery there, as the agent, I believe, said, and they're planting 3 new trees. Now, if that was proposed for the whole length of it, I think that would be unreasonable. Looking at going from 15 to 24, it is a big jump, but in terms of fit, I'm mindful, actually, to to go against officers' recommendations? Because I believe it's not. He's not talking about 2 hectares being changed over. You're talking about 9 parking spaces, and it does actually fit in well. And looking at the photographs as well. But I'll listen to other councillors, see the members of the committee what they think. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows.
Thanks, Chair. It is a difficult one, especially when you look at other parts of this site. I saw this develop and grow over the years. I don't think this is an unreasonable request by the applicants, to be honest, and the residents. And I'm a bit mindful of what Councillor Chamdell has said, and to move along with him as well. But, a bit like Dragon's Den, it should come with a couple of caveats in there. I think one is about the yellow lines to prevent some of the parking, to make it safer when they've got new bays. But also, it can only go forward subject to the other information that's been requested by planning. I think that will then pull all that together. So I'm actually mindful to go along with Councillor Chamdell and actually possibly vote against the refusal put forward by officers. But I'm, as like Councillor Chamdell, open to hearing others.
Councillor Mand.
Thank you, Chairman. I think fellow committee members have made some sensible points here. I think the application is also with all the residents. My only concern would be that if the parkings are, if this is allocated, then the current parking arrangement, where the applicants have said there's a lot of informal parking happening already, that's sort of counterproductive, I feel, to their argument, because if we shift those cars into proper bays, what's going to happen is more cars may park on where the current informal parking is happening. So I am more or less leaning into the favour of there needs to be some sort of restrictions in place if we are to go against officers' recommendations. I think we can't just create 9 spaces and then leave everything as it is. Second question was in regards to the trees. Is 3 the maximum that we can put in, or is there provision to put in some more there?
Chris, do you want to?
To confirm, that's what's been proposed. So it would really be down to. I mean, we could add a condition on if we got to a point where we were minded to approve here, and I think we'll have that discussion in more detail in a moment. But we could add a condition on which the applicant would need to agree to for additional planting. But I just want to be clear that the reason for refusal here is not related to landscaping. It's purely related to the over-provision of parking. There isn't a concern here regarding the landscaping, although we do have concerns. It doesn't form part of the reason for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Fine. Councillor Sansbury?
I just want a clarification from the officer. The agent said that this proposal is acceptable under local plan, but not under London plan. So which got the more weightage?
Thank you. That is a good question. It's probably one of the most important. So the London plan was adopted in 2021. Our local plan was adopted in 2020. I think anybody that sat in this room that has dealt with planning applications which have got parking spaces related to it, particularly the more major developments since that period, will be aware in a significant movement towards giving greater weight to the London plan, purely on the basis that before, when we were applying more weight to our own policies and our own standards, we have received appeal decisions which have given greater weight to the London plan standards. So as much as they're considered, what we've based this application on is the most up-to-date policy, and members do need to be aware of that when they're making their decision. That the London plan is what we've based our decision on, and that really should be what we focus on in the determination of this application. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, fine. Before I come back to you, Councillor Chandel, Natalie, you wanted to make a few comments?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just wanted to reiterate that any departure this evening from policy would obviously have to outweigh what it's there to do, essentially, because it has to be justified that there is a real reason to justify, to depart from policy in allowing these 9 extra car parking spaces.
Okay, and I think, Ros, you wanted to come in as well?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a few things that I wanted to clarify. So, firstly, we've heard reference to potentially an oversight in a lack of provision of parking on the street. I do disagree with that. What Chris has explained in the presentation is that there's actually an over-provision if we sort of use the current policy, which is the London Plan. So there isn't an oversight. What was approved was it considered acceptable in planning terms at the time. Now, there is a climate emergency. There is a clear direction in both government national planning guidance and also in regional planning guidance that we should be looking to encourage sustainable modes of travel. And the key factor in terms of achieving that is to minimise parking availability to effectively discourage car ownership. So I just wanted to make that clear. There wasn't an oversight. I don't agree with that. What is provided is acceptable in planning terms, and what is being proposed here would actually represent quite a stark departure from planning policy. So secondly, the agent talked about the previous application that was refused, and there was reference to it being refused in relation to a highway safety matter. Now that is correct, but the reason for refusal was actually twofold. So yes, it referenced the highway safety concerns, but it also referenced a failure to encourage sustainable modes of transport. Now, members, we need to be mindful of consistency in decision making. So previously we refused the application, albeit a different form, a different layout, due to concerns both about highway safety impact, but also in terms of the failure to encourage sustainable travel. So if you were looking to overturn officer's recommendation today, you would need to be satisfied that either that sustainable transport issue has been addressed or that there are significant material considerations that outweigh that policy conflict. So I think hopefully that's helpful and gives some further clarity.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to, I suppose, add a couple of points. One of the points which I made in the presentation was just around the fact that if you potentially increase the number of spaces that you've got, does it actually address your problem, or does it actually encourage further misuse of the car parking spaces? In the presentation from the petitioner and the agent, there were 2 elements that were brought up. One was that there isn't sufficient parking to serve the existing dwellings, which there's a case to be made by the applicant on that. But there's also an issue to do with the misuse of the spaces themselves. Now, this application does not seek to control those existing spaces. So the point that's made in the committee report and in the presentation is that does increasing the number of parking spaces address the problem? In fact, we don't think it does, because there's still no control over the existing spaces. The control of those existing spaces could happen now without the policy departure by increasing the number of spaces. So I just wanted to make that point quite clear. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chandel and then Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for that input, because I mean, in the decade that I've been sitting on the planning committee, I can almost count on one hand if I've ever gone against officers' recommendations, because our officers do give comprehensive reports. But we have to look at each application on its own merits. Now here we've got a PTOL value of 2, I believe. Now, if you've got a 2 and we're encouraging people not to have cars, I don't think so that goes hand in hand. We're looking at an area where I believe there is sufficient space there. We're deviating from policy for a reason. In terms of control, something what Councillor Mann said, a valid point. I think then conditions of whether these parking spaces are allocated to households. I believe that would certainly manage it better. The double yellow lines which I've suggested, I believe that also will assist in managing the situation better. And like I said, I don't take it lightly to go against officers' recommendation. Never have done and never will do. But on this occasion, I believe both the councillor and the resident have made valid points. And offsetting more trees, maybe, yes, why not? You know, let's put half a dozen trees in, if that will assist. But I'm still mindful of actually going against officers' recommendation, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chris, and all officers and councillor. We have a healthy discussion. It's a little bit confusing. Can we, if everybody agree, can we do a site visit? Then we can get more clear picture. So, you know, I know a couple of residents there. They have already parking issues. They are complaining, but it's difficult. So, if everybody agree, I suggest do the site visit. Then we can understand, or we can see the clear picture. Thank you.
Okay, so that's been put on the floor. Can I have a seconder to that, please? For a site visit. No. Councillor Mann?
Just wanted a bit more information. Just based on what Councillor Chandal has said and Burrows has said in regards to possible restrictions. Are we able to condition that in a refusal, or does that then need to be deferred so that we get the... I just need a bit of education on that in terms of yellow lines and also the allocation of parking. Because, Chris, you did mention we can... There's something along the lines of that. I wouldn't want to go against officer's recommendation without having all of that ironed out, in effect.
As you always do, Councillor Mann, that's a very reasonable question. So, can officers pick that one up?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think if we were dealing with a piece of public highway, we would be saying that parking control process would take place outside of the planning process. So it's governed by a different process separate to planning. It's with the local highway authority. Because we're dealing with effectively a piece of private land, it's not within our control to enforce it. So therefore a condition wouldn't meet the tests. Yeah. Thank you.
So in theory we would... Let's get this, so we would go for a site visit to defer it for the applicant to make those changes, or are we saying that we can't get involved with that at all?
Thank you, Chairman. I think if the parking controls are shown on the plans, I think members just need to be quite clear that the local authority would not be able to enforce those parking controls. It would be down to the management company or the freeholder, whoever it is, the residents as a group, to enforce those parking controls. They wouldn't be able to call your standard parking enforcement team to come out and enforce those. Yeah. Thank you.
So that makes it interesting. Going to have any more comments from councillors? Councillor Dr. Tilley, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Chairman. As Chris mentioned, this would be a departure from policy, and that is policy T 6.1, residential parking in the London plan, which would allow, as a new build, one car parking space per dwelling, maximum. That's maximum, whereas this application would increase the number of car parking spaces per dwelling to 2. Now, car parking standards are the most effective tool transportation planners, highway engineers have at tackling the big issues of the environment, climate change, public health, air quality, the economy, traffic congestion, and that's the reason why we now have maximum car parking standards that are much lower than previously at the time of the local plan. So for this reason, the Highway Authority objects to this planning application, increasing the number of car parking spaces here would set a precedent where the number of car parking spaces across the whole of St Andrews Park could be increased. St Andrews Park then becomes a car park for the town centre for commuters, and we've already heard from one of the gentlemen that spoke that already cars are blocking other vehicles in, sometimes needing the police to be called. And also the site is very close to Uxbridge Town Centre, where there's all the range of services, facilities, there's a school on the site, and just at the end of the road there's a footpath onto Uxbridge Road where there are bus services. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The puzzle for me about this is, I like to think I have some sort of common sense about stuff. Why is on the other side of the road, there's, or the other avenue of houses, is there 21 spaces? And on this side there was only, was it, I can't remember, 16 was it something? 15.
I'd say it's attributed to the unit mix and the number of units that are along that street. As much as we won't have the direct answer there right here and now, we would only be allocating additional parking, or within the planning application they would only have benefited from a higher level of parking if the unit mix were to be different or that side is more densely developed.
Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chair. This is to Dr. Tilley. So if we have a standard, how does the P-tail value then, what kind of weighting do we put to the P-tail value to there? Because to me it doesn't make sense. If you've got 10 houses and you've got a P-tail value of 0, then what you're saying, you can only have one car. And if you've got a P-tail value of 5, and then we're still allowing one car. So how does that iron out?
Okay.
Yep, thank you very much, Chairman. In the London plan, which I have a copy in front of me, there's a table, and the number of car parking spaces allowed varies according to P-tail. So in a location where you've got a P-tail ranking of 6, the very best access to public transport, the number of car parking spaces would be far lower, even 0, compared to a place that's got a P-tail ranking of 0 or 1, where there's no access to public transport. In those locations, the number of car parking spaces allowed by policy is greater. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, Councillor Mand.
Sorry, I keep coming in. Just looking at that photo, there's double yellow lines there. Just wanted to ask, how are they policed and managed at the moment?
This is the nutch of the sort of like the nut of it.
Yeah, I'll take an educated guess, but I think you're looking at the bell mouth for the front part of the road, which may well be adopted, as opposed to the rest of the informal area and car parking area. Yeah, so as Ed was the lead officer on that site, he will know very well the road that leads through the centre of the development is adopted.
So we have the centre of the road is adopted.
Yep.
The road that runs centrally. Centrally, yep. That's fine. So that goes right the way through. So we do have obviously parking attendants going down that bit.
Yeah, the part that we can control.
But they're not really officially allowed to. I just want to get some clarity.
Mm-hmm.
They're not officially allowed to then divert over that yellow line there. It's like a no-go area. So if they were to issue a ticket on a yellow line there, then whoever was that ticket was issued to would then go against, could have it dismissed.
Yeah,
correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So I can't take up questions on the floor. So this is a very difficult one. Yeah, Dr. Tilly.
Yeah. The double yellow lines. I live on a road that's not adopted, and we've got double yellow lines, but they're not enforced. How they would be enforced is if a private company and enforce the parking on behalf of the residents, and there would be a sign. You've probably seen these signs. If you park here, there's a message that you would get a fine, and I think the figure of the fine's mentioned. So by parking on the double yellow lines, you're going into a contract and you accept that you will pay that fine, and that's how it works in private roads. But I would suggest in this case that there's not a private company enforcing the double yellow lines, just as I know there aren't at the moment on my road where I live. Thank you, Chairman.
So, there's the conundrum for you guys there. So, what are you going to do? Councillor Chandel.
I think we would be sensible to go for defer it, not necessarily a site visit, and also it gives an opportunity then for the residents, councillor and the agent to come up with some additional support for this application, because I think I sense the feeling that we have in the room, and there's slight little few anomalies that we need to sort of tick. Like I said, we don't like going against officers' recommendations, but I feel which way it's going, but I just think we need to tick those boxes, and the only way to get there, I think, as much as I don't, great fan of site visits, but...
That's fine. So we have a proposal on the floor for a site visit from Councillor Singh. So you're seconding his thing.
I'll second it.
Also, let's make it quite clear that we would like that BAG or BG, whatever it is, the BGG, whatever. The BGs are very good. I like them. To come back to us on the next thing. And if you wish to have, remember this, if you wish to have speaking rights, you have to have another petition. Okay? So that means you have to go around knocking on doors, getting signatures again. Okay? So I've had a proposal and a second on the floor for a site visit. Can I show of hands those in favour of site visit? Right, and hopefully some of you will turn up. That'll be really good. Thank you very much for that. So we deferred it till we have a site visit, and you've got some food for thought there, Richard, so we'll let you see what you can come up with. Okay? If you can ask Councillor Bennett to come in if possible. Thank you. Right, so I've just had some refreshment to keep me going again. So off we go to the next one.